All right, welcome to Veterans for Cannabis. All right, it's me. They call me Big C, but you can call me Carlos Muñoz. And I got Big Jerry Campbell right next to me. Um, so today we're going to discuss a little more about the THC a debate, and we've been doing some homework. We've been getting different but the same information, right? So Jared, tell me about what you have heard.
Well, since we've been talking about THCA and what's been happening with Texas, I decided to do a little more deeper research into it. And I also end up kind of comparing where I live here in Oregon with Texas to help me better understand what maybe Texas is talking about. But so for everybody tuning in, please look to your screen. You'll see pop-ups of what we're talking about. And so I'm gonna start out by just saying, what is THCA? Well, THCA is a natural form of THC in raw cannabis. And so
Hmm.
cannabis plants, they don't produce THC directly. They actually produce THCA, and it's found in the trichomes of the plant. And I'm sure if we were able to look at it under a microscope, we'd be able to understand better. And so THCA is non-psychoactive, but until it goes through the heating process. So you smoke it, pipe, bong, you vape it, or even you bake it, right? So it goes through the
Hmm.
heating process, and through that heating process, THCA will then convert itself to THC, the compound that is known to produce the high, right? Some of my key points were that, so if that is it, then all cannabis flower, whether it's in Oregon, Texas, or even grown in your backyard, it is naturally THCA rich until it goes through the heating process. But we know like the basic fundamentals of what cannabis can do, right? With the benefits, it's anti-inflammatory, promising for arthritis, autoimmune issues, helps with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even helpful with certain cancer treatments and GI conditions, helps with seizure reduction and effects, right? Then we get to like the limitations for most studies. And most studies are preclinical, animal or even cell models. Human research is still in the early stages, but the safety profile of raw THC is looking very favorable, right? So I had to compare Texas to Oregon, right? So how is it labeled in Oregon versus Texas? Well,
Hmm.
Oregon legal and is legal here. Cannabis is fully legalized, so THCA is just cannabis. You can see lab results, THCA versus Delta 9 THC and total THC. Some shops don't market THCA. Like here in Oregon, you won't see a market for THCA. So if you were to look online, any cannabis shop,
Hmm.
it will say just THC. Now you may be able to see THCA and it marketed there in some pre-rolls or even vapes here in Oregon. But for the most part, you'll just see THC. And Texas is different. One, I know Texas, they don't have a whole lot of shops like we do here in Oregon. And so maybe Texas's argument is that if somebody gets cannabis that's not from a shop, how do they know when it goes through the heating process that the
Hmm.
THC percentage is not higher? And so, there can be THC percentages as high as 40% in some flower, right? And I know in Oregon I've seen it high as 36, 37% THC flower sold in Oregon. So that's pretty high percentage, right? So
Hmm.
we can kind of get to where Texas argument is coming from. So what say you, Carlos, right now?
Yeah. So what I have seen here, right? It seems like THC and THCA are two different genetics, right? So it looks, yeah, you're right for the you're right. THCA does have THC in it, but in most states it's legal because it is under 0.03, right? And I think that, and then they got regular THC, which is what I have seen. It's a different genetic in the seed, right? That produces THC off the back, like regular weed. Like what we used to smoke back in the day. To me, it doesn't seem like no difference, with the exception that THCA doesn't have no psychedelic bodies until you light it up. So in theory, we can say, it is kind of like the same thing as THC, right?
Yeah. I
They just
mean,
found it like they just promoted like a loophole.
yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Is it has to do with the loophole, right? Is in a way, it's a very interesting, I think, debate and argument. It really is.
Mhm.
Even for myself right now, I think I see both sides. I guess my research led me to
Right,
see both sides of the argument to stay objective, if that makes sense.
right,
Yeah.
right. No, no, no. And I think that's the point of this podcast, to be objective,
Yes.
learn, give the right. if- I tell a lot of folks, man, it's hard to be objective if you do not know what you're talking about, right? And as a parent, right, and I'm gonna say this, man, I'm gonna say this, the issue, like for me, I'm not gonna speak for yourself, but I think you and I are very alike. For me, my cannabis intake is medicinal, right? And I support that. Honestly, I even supported, recreational for adults, right? But the problem is that we have a lot of these, urban shops, selling to little kids, and they promote these gummies that they just look like Skittles, but they're infused. Like I think a couple of weeks ago, they were suing a store that was selling, I think it was like THCA infused gummies, and nobody noticed that this kid grabbed it, paid for it, and pretty much got stoned as hell.
Right.
Parents were like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" Right? So, uh, man, it is a hard argument, right? Because I see both sides of kids, right? As a parent, and I think I'm a cannabis user, so I
Right.
think I think if they just legalize the product federally, some of these loopholes would go away. That's
Right.
just what I think.
Well,
And
I
then just hold these shops accountable. If they're selling to youngers, hold them accountable.
no, I see where you're coming from because when I first started using cannabis was in 2019, and I noticed
Hmm.
as time went on, the shops around here became more about advertising for high and less about
Hmm.
medical. Does that make sense?
Right.
When I started seeing
No,
these
no, no. Yeah, it does.
30 and 40% like THC flowers
Hmm.
and the stronger vapes, and I was thinking to myself, it's no longer about the market itself is trying to go away from health to just go get high. And I don't think that in a way cannabis is all about
Right.
getting high. For you and I, it's more than high. We for us
Yeah,
we use
it is more than getting stoned. Yeah.
exactly. And so I'm with you. I don't want things advertised to children, and I don't want things advertised just for people to get high. And so yeah, it's in a way staying objective is very important, and our research is important, and to keep learning. But yes, I see your point, because I
Yeah.
see it right here in Oregon all the
I
time.
think you know, and I'm gonna say just like this right now. I think I'm behind medicinal legalization. Across the board. You
Right.
need a prescription to get it, and I wouldn't be opposed of that at all. You know, uh, uh, um, honestly, I wouldn't be opposed of that whatsoever. if they do a medical legalization federally, and then start like that, start doing the research, the tryouts, see what works. And I'm sure, it's gonna go into the lab, and they're going to mess with the DNA and all this good stuff, man. I just want, the weed that grows from the ground, man. It is, that's, you know. But yeah, I think I'm up for that. I think medical will be a good way to start. And then, if you're in a state like California, which is state legal, also taxes federally, it's based on state, I'm guessing. But regardless, the federal government has to take a cut from the taxes, because I think that's going to be vital as well.
Yeah, I would love to see in my state for them to go back to medical instead of advertising more for
Mhm.
high. And because it's challenging for me to go into a shop because it's, I spend a lot of time making sure because I don't like high percentage THC. For me, that it's not really for
Okay.
me. Yeah. And so, yeah, for me, it's becoming challenging here in Oregon. It really is. It may come to the point where I have to start growing my own more often than going to a
Mm.
shop. And so that's where I'm looking at now.
And yeah, and that's what I hope this legalization happens, because if you have, a card, a medical card, let's say, right? They should allow you to grow your own personal stash. You know, what, up to 7 plants, some crazy like that. I'll be cool with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
would be cool with that. Yeah. So, anyways, as we were discussing, it seems like THCA is no different than in the general concept than THC. Because obviously there is a genetic difference, right? Or it could be. That's still to be debate. Um, but and there's always that but, right? Yeah. There's always that but, and it's like but that, boom. Um, yeah. I think I do support a medical approach moving forward. And I
Well,
think and I hope the federal government. Yeah, go ahead.
oh no, no, go ahead. No, 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 no. I was thinking. So go ahead.
No, and I hope the federal government start looking at that more closely sooner than later, because I think we are behind a lot of other countries. I mean, look at Europe, for example. And I'm thinking about Amsterdam, because Amsterdam is one of the, you know, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's pretty fun.
Never been there.
You know, yeah, yeah. But anyways, yeah, man. So I think we coming to a conclusion of this episode. I think we discussed and we have found more and more about THCA, and I think the conversation has to continue, right? And we have to learn more, and if we're going to promote it, just learn more about it, right? Um, I'm gonna look more into the Texas, and now Wisconsin is having the same argument about banning THCA products. You know, so I'm gonna keep my eye on this, right? And I'm going to do a little more homework. But I'm trying to be objective, and I do not see uh, um an argument that could, argue, the continuing legalization of THCA if THCA is practically THC. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or
So if you're in a state, yeah,
or the other
or
side is getting. What if somebody gets their weed from somebody and they, like I said, I think Texas' argument is, what if what they smoke is higher than it is,
yeah,
or the big thing is those
right,
synthetic cannabinoids that are floating out there. I think that was something else
yeah,
I researched, and so that is, I think, very
that's a
important.
big one. That was a big one. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that is what like I said, that whole we stay objective, because I think that's what Texas was trying to allude to as well, is what if that could happen? I mean, they can add stuff to the
yeah.
weed. What I think
I
they're saying.
think that, you know, yeah, and they, I have seen in places where they add some kind of powder looking thing that enhance, and I heard that some kind of weird crap they put into it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do a little bit. Yes. Yeah, I came across in some research reading.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's very interesting. Yep.
yeah. All right, so let's chop it up here. Let's call it an end. We will try to do another. We will try to keep it weekly, but again, that is based on live. Okay, minimum we're gonna do it twice a month. Very minimal. I think next week we need to go back into the health benefits. But I want to go back to the very beginning of the movement. And I think it was early 2000s. After the opioid outbreak we had in the 2000s. That a lot of people start going toward cannabis and a little more natural resources. I want to explore that a little more, right? Because I find that interesting. And then the outcome. What percentage of these cancer patients have gained from cannabis, right? Um, so yeah, that's what I would like to talk next time. Jared, you got anything else?
Oh no, I would love to. You know, I've been doing some research into spiritual life along with cannabis. Um, for
Yeah,
for either having a longer life, like the connection between
right.
spirituality is something I've been
Hmm.
researching too as well. I think those would be a cool topic too. If there's any listeners out there that are into the spirituality, with cannabis.
Yeah, yeah, and that would be very cool because I know a little bit about Native American and Eastern medicine and how they use some of those herbs, and they use some of those psychedelics to get in tune with yourself in a sense.
Yep,
So that would
absolutely.
be an interesting conversation. Yeah. All right, everybody. We're going on 19 minutes, so we're gonna let you be here and let's catch up again in a week or so, okay?
Sounds good. All
All
right.
right, so, sounds great. So everybody have a great um week. God bless. Um, rock on. All right, thank you guys. Have a great
God bless
day.
you all.
Peace.
Peace. Bye.
Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.